spooky world of MultimediaJay.
How's that for a different intro? That is a fully voiced track from the YouTube audio library. There's a couple of full songs on there, but I heard it and I thought it was all upbeat and stuff. It's basically like gospel music, but with all like happy joy type lyrics and things like that. It's not as preachy as most stuff out there, but I figured, hey, you know, with the redemption of Tuxedo, it would go along really well. Likewise with the pipe organ music and stuff like that at the beginning, and the Cantus Firmus monks and stuff like that. Gives me an excuse to play some tracks from the YouTube audio library that I usually don't get a chance to play. So anyways, here's the setup that I went with. Monolith, actually I wound up combining old and new by, well, doing it this way instead. So Monolith is still off the floor, it's still on the shelf, it's still in its old place, but the power is now down behind down in that corner instead of the computers, and there's no more room to squeeze a computer in there. So Monolith is up on top of the shelf, stuff like that, so it doesn't suck too much dust from the carpet, because I kind of have to send the vacuum robot around once I'm done cleaning all this up. Scotch tape left over from the setup and everything, and just, it's a mess. We'll be cleaning that once we're all done moving things around over here. Plus, it's probably a good time to check under the carpet for more plastic dust from the bottom of the carpet wearing against the floor. So anyways, here's what I ultimately went with. I said I was going to combine the new setting with the new setup with the old setup, but I wasn't totally thinking like this. But Monolith is still there, but Tuxedo is back down here now, because Monolith is fatter. I don't have enough room to squeeze behind the furniture if Tuxedo isn't in here, so... Plus, this is definitely a sturdier system to have on the floor than Monolith is. The build quality of the Define R5 isn't exactly what I thought it was. Also, you have the Modja vents on top, which gets me worried about stuff leaking in through the top if someone spills a drink or the roof leaks or something. This, solid steel, nice and heavy. And perfectly fine. This is basically back to, of course, you don't have any drives in there anymore. Gotta find something to put in these systems where the drives used to be. And the 5 1/4 bass. However, this whole thing with combining old and new, I wasn't expecting to combine old and new this way and just put Tuxedo back down here. But theoretically, we could pull this out, Silver Bullet could go in there. So whichever one of these I happen to be working on, just swap them over, although the Silver Bullet's not staying there. I'm just keeping everything together for now because the power supply that'll eventually be running Tuxedo is already on order. EVGA 600 watt on sale this week, and then the PC Power and Cooling 610 can go back in here, so we can have new with new, and we can have old with old, and hopefully this all blows up all at once. I'd hate to take the brand new and superior motherboard down because of, well, I mean, the PC Power and Cooling thing that blew up over the weekend didn't do that, so still though, keeping things all new with new and old with old, and if we cook the CPU in this from too much overclocking, we can put an FX chip in there or something like that. Then, well, see what we can do to finish off the Core 2. Although I am thinking of upgrading the cooling and trying to overclock it, like that's gonna do anything. It's nothing significant. This thing still smokes both of them. Now, this rearranging setup grand tour thingy or whatever has left some loose ends that need to be tied up. So let's get to work on that stuff, shall we? First off, check this out on the motherboard box. Anti-surge IC. I'm sure that came in handy. So I'm looking at the 2005 system here, and of course, this was an old Antec Sonata case. A lot of people thought this was an Antec Landboy. No, actually, a lot of people thought this was an Antec Landboy case. It is not. It is a mid-2000s Antec Sonata case, and it's missing a few pieces, a few drive bays and stuff like that. I'm going to put all that stuff back in there ultimately, but the 2005 system, with its Athlon 4000, Athlon 64 actually, in case I mix it up and called it the Athlon XP at one point. Freudian slip, because my original silver bullet was an Athlon XP 2000. Now, I hate these cases with these stupid fan holders in them. You know why? Because those punch hole thingies are where the fans holes are supposed to go once you put them inside these little gripper things, and then these holes a little bit out from the edge are for the actual fan holder to bolt into the case. So I'm over here trying to line this thing up like, how come I can't get the holes to line up? So, unbelievable. That explains the rinky-dink little fan screws, too, that are about half the usual length. Goofy fan holders aside, though, this thing definitely was ahead of its time in some areas. It has some pretty serious server potential as well, although it is very much an early 2000s ATX case. Basically, this is an early 2000s ATX case, though, where the power supply is trying to suck heat off the top of the processor. So, there we go. Now it's running at BIOS level speeds. This is the inherent problem I have with these sorts of things, is they seem to impede the airflow a little. So I upgraded it to some of the old Fractal 120s I had sitting around. We use Cooler Masters for any remaining 120s on here. So, some old serial ATA drives and things like that. Put an itty-bitty video card in here, and we'll actually have room for them, but look at this. This is from the mid-2000s. We had special screws that went into silencing thingamabobs that we could use for these sorts of things. So we could actually toss a bunch of drives in here, throw an SSD up here, and then put an optical up here for loading stuff. Not much use for opticals anymore. And this thing was actually quite a quiet case, despite its tackiness. Where's the panel? Although, I am going to miss, well, actually no, if I put mechanical drives in here and use this as some kind of server, then this thing is actually extremely quiet. This is the case, actually. Just gotta fix the door. But this is that case, actually. A little bit of noise. You can mostly hear the stock cooler and whatnot. Although I'm curious what swapping out the thermal interface material will do for the Athlon 4000. But this machine, actually, is the computer where hard drive noise sounded like a coffee percolator brewing coffee. The various types of noises drives make was muffled so effectively by this thing that it sounds like a coffee percolator. Maybe when I put some more stuff in here, I can demonstrate that this is definitely a far superior case. This is definitely a far superior case to the to using fossil to house these components. That's for sure. Only problem is it's scratching the furniture because there's nothing left of the grommets on the bottom. We can get more grommets. Matter of fact, I have some felt pads around here somewhere that I wanted to use for cases like this. Let's see where those went. Found them. They got their own case too, by the way. Or they got their own bag now. There we go. Let's see how long these last compared to their rubber counterparts. Makes the bottom a little slippy slidey, but it's better than scratching up the furniture. I don't know why I keep turning this thing on and off. There's really not much to do with this thing until I can get some more storage in here. Or do Ultimate XP machine on this thing, put a mechanical drive in and have this be like a period piece reliving the bad old days and stuff. The interesting thing about this machine is it only has 1.5 gigs of RAM. So that puts it under the 2 gig limit. I could always put something in stick slot number 4 over there, cap it at 2, and then have this be Ultimate XP that way. I think this could do 4 gigs if I really wanted to, but with a single core processor? Watch the table! I don't know what I'm going to do with this thing. Although it would be nice if I could burn out processors and then max the processors and the boards. And do me some more overclocking experiments trying to kill processors somehow. Likewise too with the Core 2 Duo, fry that sucker and put a Core 2 Quad Q6600 in there and call it a day with that system. This board's still awesome too. This is the Asus A8N SLI.
Epic fail.
Okay, let's try that again. The Asus A8N SLI Premium. Circa mid-2000s, talking motherboard. You can plug something into the onboard sound chip. The built-in sound will tell you all the postcodes, so you just have it say stuff and whatnot. And I think it says loading operating system when it posts. But still A-OK, rock solid. No problems whatsoever. This is a big reason why I went Asus with monolith. It just works. That's my 3 favorite words. Tried SLI this back in the day with some GeForce GT 6600s, if anybody remembers those. Those are itty-bitty cards that only took up 1 slot on the back and things like that. So yeah, this thing has some potential. The only problem is it doesn't have ERP, so the standby power of this thing is 10 watts. That sucks. 10 watts standby power. Maybe we'll try that again with this new Antec True power supply. But yeah, 10 watts standby power. That is garbage. I mean, the turd Shiba idles at 10 watts, and that's when it's actually on and doing something. It's just crazy though. This was the computer that I built to play Elder Scrolls Oblivion with. And this was the computer that I built, not in this case of course, but this is also the computer that I got my start on YouTube with. 2005 system, the Core 2 Duo didn't come along until 2007. This was it. Original stock cooler, original thermal compound, still working. I still remember the day when I very carefully put this thing on here hoping that the pre-applied thermal paste would work properly. Probably should replace it with a more proper application of thermal compound now because of course, anytime you use the built-in stuff with the stock cooler, it's spread method. Not the best way, but definitely maybe a dot or a line would serve this processor a lot better. Right now I can't even see the temperature. I just know it's not overheating because the board would be beeping all over the place if it were. Yes, myself and this machine, crappy though it may be nowadays, we go way back. Let's let everything roll to a stop before we continue here. Well, at least the AMD thing. Gee, I wonder which fan has a better situation when it comes to oil. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the balance of today's little tinkering session is going to be the post-mortem autopsy of the PC Power and Cooling Silencer Mark II 750 watt power supply. For many years this was my primary power supply in Tuxedo in the main system, so it definitely went through its MTBF faster than every other power supply that I have here. I originally picked it up after to replace the 610 watt power supply. Now, not that I needed the extra wattage, but I happened to like that this would help with the cooling of the rather hot 1090T at the time. I was using a stock cooler by sucking air off the processor. Now, the older cases had the power supply situated on top instead of on the bottom. The ATX standard was that the power supply would help with drawing heat off the processor back when they ran hotter. There's one problem with that. The enemy of all electronics is heat, and your power supply is one of the top contributors to system stability. If the power coming out of this thing isn't clean, your system will have issues. And in this case, with this thing, we had all this heat from a hot processor going right up to be exhausted out the case that way. Didn't exactly help things any with not stressing the heck out of your power equipment. So as you know, this thing went out with a bang over the weekend, and I wanted to kind of just take a look at it and see what happened, see if we can find what blew up, whether it was a capacitor or even the transformer. I mean, I have seen explosions and smoke shows with power supplies when transformers blew out. In one case, because a guy building a power supply wired it in backwards. So instead of stepping down 120 volts to 12 volts, it stepped it up to 1200. But anyways, I usually am a big fan of buying power supplies by the pound and looking for heavier components, thicker wire, and other telltale signs that corners weren't cut in order to know that you're buying something rock solid that's going to last for years and years like this thing did, and not potentially take your system with it. But even when you do everything right, these things only have limited lifespans, and the most volatile voltages in your entire system are going to be here. This is where the AC is. This is where the high current is. This is where everything gets its stuff together before going out to all the various parts of the system. So this, definitely, I think the new dust sucker cases, assuming you can keep the bottom clean, the dust sucker cases are probably better for this because fresh air comes in and it goes straight out. I imagine the dust sucker case era is going to be better for power supplies than the old ATX, where this thing actually would help cool things down. The fan on this thing is a 135mm fan size, the proprietary power supply fan size, of which Newegg, when I went to replace this fan, only had a single SKU. So nowadays you'll see them with 120s and 140s, so you can actually put standard stuff in there if you really wanted to, and you know your wiring and stuff like that. So yeah, this thing was on fan number 2. The first fan developed a scratchy bearing, and I got sick of hearing the noise from the thing spinning around, so I put a new one in, got a few more years out of it, and then it went out with a bang last weekend. Now this is basically something... Now here's the thing. This thing is built like a tank, and it still went out with a bang. And I imagine at some point the 610 watt one will too. And it's just the nature of the beast with these things. So even when you do everything right, supposedly, with a power supply, you can still have this happen. Never say never, and never say we're all set. Those words can jinx you like you wouldn't believe. So, 750 watt, real brand, all the signs and... loud car. All the signs would indicate that this thing was built without cutting corners. Usually with corner cutter power supplies, instead of having an actual real fan grill, you'll just have cuts in the metal. That's a sign that they were trying to save money, which of course gets you wondering, where else did they try and save money and things like that too. So you also see thinner wires and things like that. There's an e-tailer out there that used to be a competitor to Newegg and whatnot back in the day. I think they're still around. They're called Directron.com. They used to have an article about buying power supplies by the pound. Basically look for heavier power supplies in order to get bigger components, thicker wire and stuff like that, unless you get some jerk manufacturer that just puts a big steel plate in the bottom to weigh it down. So we're going to take this thing apart carefully, because there could still be some things charged in there, and let's see what blew up. I don't intend on putting this back together or trying to fix it or trying to use it again. You know, quite frankly, one kaboom and explosion is enough, thank you very much. And there are actually decent power supplies out there that will work. And plus, well, let's take a look anyways. I don't really want to spend all day with the meter trying to see what specifically shorted, when power supplies, they're decent power supplies that aren't that much more than the no-name power supplies with the metal cutouts instead of the actual fan grill. Let's start digging into this thing, shall we? Fans out. Check out the LY 135mm. There's also a fan baffle. The idea, of course, that stuff doesn't go straight up and out. It has to actually go around and circulate through everything. There's definitely some gunk and crap that got in here as things dusted up and stuff along those lines. Can't really smell what blew out earlier, but I'm not seeing any signs of anything as of yet. And I think it would be good to take this, well, I don't know if there might still be something on those capacitors or something, but there are some screws on here. Yeah, definitely some crap that got in here, along with the usual dust and things like that. So, just gotta be careful. This thing has had a day for things to drain, but, some of these caps could still have something on them. Ooh, there's the burn mark of what shorted out right there. And as you can see, it's still... it's still insulated and whatnot. The plastic still lifts off. But that corresponds to some burnt circuitry right around here. And what does that correspond to on the other side? Transformer! Oh yes, look at that. You can't really see it from this angle, but if we check the electrical connections on the bottom, we can see all the dark spots are right around here or so. Careful, I don't want to short anything anymore. I might still get zapped by some of this stuff. Look at that, right there. See, there's the dark spots on the solder joints. You can see that roughly corresponds to the burn mark on the plastic. Yeah, this thing can be recycled. We lost a transformer. Of course, I could have always soldered one in and have the rest of this thing still work, but why do I want to go to all that trouble? Especially when something could blow out. Fuse. Look at that, a fuse. Oh, is the fuse soldered on too? Non-replaceable fuses? Woohoo! Of course, you have to replace the transformer before replacing the fuse would be worth it. I don't think I want to go to all the trouble to desolder that, but there's the burn mark right there. Underneath corresponds to that transformer right there. A short in that transformer would have caused that kind of a spark. And much like, you know, everybody's worried about, what if the power supply takes out other parts of the motherboard? If a transformer is shorting, then that means that there's high voltage going where it's not supposed to go. So now I have to wonder about what else could have gotten damaged as well. Look at those huge caps right there. Not bulging or anything. Doesn't look like they spat anything on the bottom either. But yes, I think that transformer was what killed this power supply. The only thing that would cause this to do that, to short out and cause a big burn. The only thing that would cause a big burn like that is for this thing to have shorted. So yeah, well, let's take a look at where this is. I think maybe we could look this up in some service literature if there was some. But let's see. We come in here, and in this, is this really the transformer that steps down from 120 volts? Because then what's this one for? I'd have to follow the trails on the bottom of the board here, but definitely the burn marks are right underneath this transformer, so that has to have shorted, which means I don't know how good the rest of this circuitry would run either. Either way, it's not the end of the world if I have to buy another power supply for something like this, but transformer. This is exactly what caused the power supply in an electronics shop that one of my shopmates built to blow up, but it wasn't because the transformer shorted, it was because he wired it in backwards. There's a diode near the burn zone too, or whatever that thing's supposed to be. I'm guessing D usually means diode. Oh, look at that carnage. Yeah, this is... Probably fixable if someone wanted to go to all the trouble, but if a transformer shorted, what else could it have damaged? U something, D something, a couple caps there, things like that. A little bit of gunk on this. There's gunk on the bottom of the board too, but yeah, burn mark. Burn, baby, burn. Oh well. Right then, there ends that matter. I will be keeping the fan though. That thing is a pretty standard size for power supplies and things like that. Silencer Mark II. That nice grill to go with it too. Huh, wait a minute. You know, I might have found some use for it. Well, the thing is though, it's not even 3-pin. It's 2-pin. And as you can see, with me splicing and soldering everything together, I had to mix an old plug with a new something or another for this. I just don't feel like throwing out that fan. We can throw out the other stuff though. I don't feel like keeping those screws anyways. So there ends that matter, although what I do with the 135 fan, who knows. This is now cleared off. This is now cleared off, and we can, well, do whatever next. Don't know what the next stage of this is while we're waiting for the new egg stuff to come in, but interesting, very interesting. Till next time, this is MultimediaJay signing off. Thanks for stopping by.